Okay, it's 4:30. We're here to meet on the County Board of Appeal. To stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Carl, we'll just turn it over to you then.
All right, so I had sent out a board packet for the County Board of Appeal. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share that from my own computer and put it up on the monitor here too. And I had sent this out earlier. Full screen on mine. Basically, just kind of gave you an overview of all the information that was sent out. So it's the Commissioner Revenue Letter, just stating that we are in compliance. The value changes from last year to this year. All the good sales, all the good residential sales, all the county sales. And then basically the sales for 2026. I've also included the vacant land sales that are less than 34.5 acres. The lakeshore sales, and then the A and Gold review. Today, we do not have any appeals that have called in or been part of any of this, so it's been pretty quiet for the most part. So getting started here is the first page, or the first couple of pages are just kind of an overview of kind of what the assessment looks at. So our sales date range that we're looking for the 2025 sales is from October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. There we go. And so those are the sales that we used to establish the 2025 assessment. Things that the state looks at is that we are looking at the assessment should be 100% of market. So if a property sells for $100,000, we should be assessing it at $100,000. The range that they give us is between 90 and 105. For outside of that range, we either need to raise values or we need to lower values. We need at least 6 sales to constitute a market. So for each jurisdiction, they need 6 sales. And then that 6 sale, what they do is they arrange those parcels from smallest ratio to largest ratio. And the median sale or the middle one is what needs to fall between that 90 and 105. And how they calculate the ratio is they take the sales price divided, or I'm sorry, the assessed value divided by the sales price gives us a ratio. And that's how we look at that. So if the sales price was $100,000 and the assessed value was 95, it would mean our ratio was 95%. So that would be the ratio that's used. That's how they calculate for us. Any kind of questions on those first 2 sheets there of what the state looks at and how they look at them? The other thing that they do is they also, if you don't have 6 sales, which we have a couple of jurisdictions, basically most of the townships and a couple of the cities, they don't have 5 sales in a year. So then what's looked at is what's called a 5-year sales study. And then what the state looks at is what is your market trending, so that if you had say 95, 90, 85, 80, the state is going to come in and say, well, why aren't you raising the values when you can see that they're starting to dip off? And the same thing's true as if it's going the other direction. If you're going, 90, 95, 100, 105, 110, why aren't you lowering values of jurisdiction? So there's a couple other things that we're looking at in the years past as well. So the state wants to see what we're doing to adjust the assessment, make it fit the market.
Carl, does the state see every sale?
State seats every sale, every good, bad, everything. So the other part that the state looks at is whether it's a qualified sale or not. Qualified sale would be between a willing buyer and seller who have no prior interest So if I sold to Chad or something along that, where we're not family members, we're not business partners, we're not those other types of things. That's what the state is looking for. But if, you know, Vicky and I were relatives and I sold to Ricky or to Vicky and she was, that would be not considered a good arm's length sale. In residential properties, estate sales are not considered good sales, but in agricultural sales, they are considered good sales. So there's a whole list, there's 28-page document stating what's a qualified sale and what is not.
And you have to certify them, correct, that it is a good sale? Okay, and have you done any of them, not certified any of them this year?
We still have to review all of them.
But I get that, but have you denied? Like one you did about a number of years ago down on County Road 8, I'm not gonna say names, but.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that one you did, I know you did, cause it wasn't a true market sale,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Okay, but have you done any of them this year like that?
Yes, we have. I mean, that's what Vicky and Matt, as they're going out and viewing properties, they're looking at things, they're looking at. Is there new construction? Because new construction's kicked out, but it's over a certain percentage. Those are those things as they're viewing, they also review those. And then anything that's questionable, like that might be kicked out before even Vicky and Matt see them. Linda would be going through those sales and just verifying that they're good too. So, but yes, we physically, all of the good sales, Matt and Vicky will physically go out and review each one of those. So,
Is that after they've been sold, they go and review
yes, yep, after they've been sold.
them? Cause then you get notice that they're sold. You get-
Yes, yep. We get what's called an ECRV. And so the recorder's office, they get them in the initial part. Our office goes to look, to make sure that the legal descriptions are all correct, the names are right. Basically all the required boxes are filled in there. And then once we get them, we send them over to the auditor's office and they do their piece to it. And then they go to the treasurer and then they go back to the recorder's office and then they can file their deed for the property. So. And every one of those it all goes through the state system.
Well,
And I'm not gonna go over the property tax piece because. That's just kind of, again, this is kind of a form that I kind of liked, and so I just brought it forth and. That we could show people as well. You all will go through the budgeting process and see how that all works. So the next page here is the certification of the State Board of Equalization, and we had no changes for that. So the state looked at our assessment, and what they found, everything was within state guidelines. I just got this the other day, so I was like, well, I'm gonna include this too. With this, we haven't had a state board increase or decrease since probably 2013. So, and that was the one that I inherited, so.
does Mark would go to your conferences?
No.
Assessment conferences,
He was at our fall conference last year. He was planning on being at our spring conference, but since they didn't actually pass a tax bill or a budget bill, he was still down there doing work. So he didn't make it to our spring conference, so, it's a 50-50 whether the commissioner of revenue is there or not.
Yeah.
So, and he's good because he's informed and I think he's learning a lot being the commissioner of revenue, just seeing all the laws that they used to pass, and now he's on the side of how do you implement these?
right,
And so I think it's a really good thing to have him in that position, just because he can maybe slow down or say, how the heck do we implement this law?
well, he was a house rep and he
Yeah.
sat on the budget committee forever.
Yep. So I think it is a good addition. I guess time will tell to see how it all works out. So then, to the next page, here's kind of a listing showing the value changes in each jurisdiction. So it shows Ag, which shows the new construction difference. Just kind of shows you every jurisdiction and how they kind of moved with the assessment. And now just because you might see a farm total of 5.3% increase in market value, that does not mean that every property only saw a 5.3% increase in market value. Some might have seen a 20%, some might have seen a 5% reduction. Like each parcel is a little bit different. It's an average. And again, that goes through the ag, the residential, the seasonal rec, commercial, industrial. There's not a lot of commercial industrial out in the townships. Those numbers are really skewed by one property moving one direction or the other. So I look at them as a whole, not necessarily as an individual. And then the cities, same thing. The only thing that we include is seasonal rec commercial and bed and breakfast and mobile home parks.
So I got a question. When somebody, plugs in like a limited liability partnership or a corp, say it was a residential setting. Is that a triggering mechanism for you to change it to a different classification?
We value according to value, classify according to use. So even if the jurisdiction says, well, it's not zoned for whatever use, however it's being used is how we classify.
Okay.
So it might be non-conforming in their zoning, but we're still gonna, if it's commercial industrial, we're still gonna classify it as that.
So a limited liability corporate partnership carries no weight on any of that then?
No, it's according to the use.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Good to know.
So then this page here is the grand totals for the county, and this is kind of where I like to look at and see what actually happened overall. And the thing that I did add was the new construction total, because that wasn't previously included in the assessment years. And this year we had a 40% between 2014 assessment and 2024 and 2025, we had a 40% increase in our new construction. And that's essentially because of, a couple of big buildings that were being finished up, the one in Ashby, the John Deere dealership down here. There was a little bit of work that went into the dairies. So those are three big areas that had a lot of new construction. And that's a lot of where that new construction number went up.
So those digesters are taxed?
Those digesters are taxable, yes.
Really?
Yep. So that whole project out there is about a $45 million project.
That's huge.
We're not gonna be able to tax $45 million.
No.
We'll be lucky to get probably 6 million of it.
Weren't they like 36,000 at one time in real estate taxes? Didn't you tell me that one time when they first built them?
The digest, that's probably what they'll end up being.
No, but the complex before the digesters and everything were in, it's just that complex you said was like $36,000.
I'd have to go back and look in.
Okay.
So yeah, the digester is considered industrial, so they're gonna pay the 2% tax rate, they're gonna pay like. It doesn't get the same egg classification as the dairy does. So they're gonna pay a lot more in tax. The other thing about that is the digester portion. A lot of that is considered equipment, so that's why it's not taxable.
So they're depreciating it then?
Well, it's not part of the real estate. So like the digester portion, kind of what that looks like is it's in a big box. And it looks like a big Conex box, and all the stuff that cleanses the methane goes through that box, and when it comes out the other end, essentially it's usable natural gas. So, but that piece there, that's not taxable. Cause it's all considered personal property.
Carl, the 2025% market under ag, it's 77.96, and then below it's 78.84. How does that tie in then to the above there on the total grand total where it's 6.01 and 4.84?
So what that is kind of showing that of the market, so 2025 ag is 77.96 or 78% of the market is derived from ag value in Grant County.
Okay, so that's related to the total.
To the total, yes, yeah. So residential went up, not quite a full percentage. Seasonal rec went down a little bit, commercial industrial went up a little bit. Seasonal rec, bed and breakfast, mobile home stayed the same. Apartment stayed the same. Again, those are small portions of the market. Yeah. That makes sense?
Yep.
So moving on, the next page is a listing of all the sales that occurred in Grant County. And again, these are gonna be the good sales, the bad sales, the relative sales, prior interest sales, the new construction kickout. So this is basically just to show you everything countywide. I believe there's gonna be 9 pages of sales. And again, these would be everything from vacant lots, the seasonal properties, the commercial.
You wouldn't assume there would be that many savings, but that's. Wow.
Yeah, so we had 210 sales. But not all of those are good. So. But, yeah, we have quite a few transactions in here. Yeah. Then the next listing is gonna be all the good residential sales that occurred within the county. And these were all time trended. So this year in Grant County, we had a 16.791% time trend. So basically what the state is saying is that if a sale sold in October of 23, if it had sold at the end of September, it would have seen a 1.3019% monthly trend increase. So that was the growth in the market. And so,
Monthly, so almost 13%.
what's that?
You said monthly, so almost.
So,
13%.
yeah, a 1.319%
Monthly.
monthly. Yep. And that's compounded monthly. So then what they do is if it occurred on October 2nd, they're gonna time trend that all the way up to the January 2nd, 2025. So it might see 15 months of time trend for that sale. So again, that sale is gonna be more than what the actual sales price is. So there's a couple of different things that I do to verify that the states. So we have something called MCAS that I go through and I put all our sales in and I kind of try to dissect it a little bit. To see if I'm coming up with the same numbers as the state. My numbers were identical to the states. So then I also looked at paired sales analysis to see if those were showing the same type of growth in the market. And I found that it was 18%. So I wasn't gonna fight a 16% time trend just to get something higher. So I didn't appeal that to the state. So again, all the good residential sales, you see that they're time adjusted. And that's what we have to use. So the next listing we're gonna look at is the market sales trends. And this is just something that I created and that helped me with the local boards of appeal, and I feel it's just good information to see. Our number of foreclosures are going down, for the 25 assessment. Our number of good residential sales is picking up a little bit. But in reality, it's about average of what we've seen in the past. So the foreclosures are only 5% of the total market in good residential sales. Some things that really stuck out this year was the average sales price. Was a big increase from the prior year. Same thing with the median sales price, is that we were seeing a lot of kind of those mid-range homes were selling for a lot more money. And then we can even tell that with average sales price for residential properties off water. So those, again, these are gonna be, most of these were in the cities. The average sales price was 170,000. And then when you look at even those properties on water, they didn't see nearly as much of an increase as the off water properties. And then what I've done is I just kind of graphed kind of the increase. And what we're kind of seeing is from 2015 through 2025, we're looking at about countywide, about a 10% a year increase over the last 10 years. So even over the last 10 years, we're seeing a lot more inflation in our market than probably what would be standard. I mean, standard is usually 3 to 5. Any questions on that?
I got a question for you, Carl. So the medium range home, people are paying more for them, right?
Yes.
So the high end homes though, they're not paying more, they're paying about the same.
So what we had to do this year in our cost tables is we ended up leaving the upper end houses basically where they are. And we had to drag the whole bottom end of the market up. So I did that through our cost tables and looking at our depreciation. And then what I do is I run an analysis on those sales to see, did we actually hit the mark that we were looking for? And looking at all of that, yes, we did. You know, so those are all where they should be. But this was not an easy year to be doing dual jobs. Because there's a lot of movement in the tables and just getting them to the appropriate levels was definitely more difficult this year, with having to keep part of the market flat and the other part pushing up. The next couple of pages are the sales listings for each of your areas. So it should start off with all the sales in each one of your jurisdictions. So Troy, Ken, Dwight, and Bill, all of yours are listed kind of in a row there, and that's all sales for each jurisdiction individually. And then they're gonna go into the good residential sales by each of your jurisdictions. And then the last pages are gonna be the 2026 sales already looking forward in each of your jurisdictions. And with such a large time trend, I was expecting a little bit of a bounce back, and it's kind of showing that in our 2026 sales already. Is that there's a little bit of a bounce back, like in Herman, we're looking at a little bit of a bounce back. Some of the townships we're looking at a little bit of a bounce back because, you know, with, again, such a large increase that to me, the raw ratio does essentially the same thing, but the state doesn't agree with me. So I do expect a little bounce back from like the city of Herman, because if you were to seen on the the value ranges that Herman saw a large increase. Herman City saw about a 38.5% increase in valuation. So. Any questions on any of your sales? Moving on to the vacant land sales. So this year we had to raise our vacant land in basically all of our cities. We were noticing that we were low on all of it. So basically all of our jurisdictions, we ended up doubling our land value. Again, that was in conjunction with raising the lower end. One of the best or the easiest ways to lower or raise values in the lower end of the properties is through the land valuation. Because raising the land value from 4,000 to 8,000 has more of an impact on a $20,000 house than doing that to a $200,000 house. So, and then even when we're looking at our sales, our median ratio is 52%. It kind of shows you that our vacant sales, we were low. When we went back and looked last year, we were at like 94%. So there's an increase in the market value in the vacant land sales of less than 34.5. So we had to do that. We did that with all the cities. You know, we had a couple sales of $25,000 in Hoffman. We had, Ashby's $25,000 sale. You know, and again, we needed to do something. We did have a little issue down in Herman with raising values as much as we did. So we did at the local board of appeal go back and reevaluate those or take a second look at those. And we did end up lowering the values on the vacant lots in Herman City as well. So it's kind of one of those things that if, you know, there were a lot of people who came to the local board, which is good because it kind of gave us an indicator that, hey, maybe we overshot this one segment of the market. And they kind of gave us their input and why they thought their values were overvalued. Vicky came back and her and I kind of looked at the land values again. We looked at actually all the way from since we had our CAMA system till today. We kind of agreed that, yep, we need to make a little bit of an adjustment. So we did that. And we didn't just touch the parcels that came to appeal, we touched every parcel that should have been fixed, whether they appealed or not. So again, we were making it fair and equitable for all people within the city. Regardless of whether they,
Did it make a difference if there was service stuff in them and improvements on the lot?
some of them already had.
They already got water and sewer.
Yep, yeah, it was the vacant lots, not the improvements.
Okay.
And then we're also, this summer, we're going through, and we're gonna make some adjustments in Herman even going forward yet, and we're gonna kind of equalize those values. And then we're gonna use that same methodology and hit every other city in the county and use that same methodology so that we can kind of put a cap on certain values and we can put a minimum on other ones. That way we don't end up with a lot having, or a city block having almost $90,000 of value on it. We want to make sure that a block is still only worth so much.
Yeah.
So
Is there any specials that are gonna give it a negative effect on valuation that are on some of them lots down there?
I don't track the special assessments.
Okay.
So that would be the city and Chad's department. So
If there's, you know, some type of assessment on the property and, you know, say you've got the valuation and there's a true value there to it, but then, you know what I mean, it'll. That special should take that valuation down, because it's the true value of that lot is.
it may or it may not. It all depends on whether the special's been paid off or not. The state actually says you can't adjust the values because of those types of things.
Really?
It's just like an ag district, you can't adjust values because of it,
I didn't know.
so.
Hmm.
So we heard a little flack about our vacant lands, but again, we had the sales to back those up. What we did there. So then moving on to the lake shore sales, there were only 2 sales on Pelican Lake. We still ended up doing a 3% increase on our Pelican Lake sales. Same thing with Barrett, I believe we just left Barrett the same, but we ended up increasing our vacant lots on Barrett. Palm de Terre Lake, again, they also saw the 3% increase, that got them into that 90 percentile as well. And then looking forward to 2026, with 1 sale, it's not really enough to go off of. Any questions on our vacant land or our lakeshore sales? So the next listing that I have is the ag listing, and it just kind of shows you that what's going on here in Grant County. It shows you the average assessed. For 2014, we were looking at about 7,100 per acre. In 2025, we're looking at 7,250. And we're looking at a slight decrease for 2026 at about 7,100 acre again. So then same thing with sale price per tillable acre, 2024 was 85. 2025, we're looking at about 9,200 per acre. And then for the preliminary of 2026, those values are starting to drop down. So we're starting to see that. I believe when I ran our ratio here just the other day, we were sitting at about 106%. So as of this point, if the trend or if the ag market were, or the sales study were to close today, you know, we're probably looking at probably an 8-9% reduction in value. It's still too early to tell, but that's kind of where we're sitting. That's gonna have a huge impact. Whatever happens to ag has a large impact on residential, seasonal, commercial properties. Because again, they're 78% of the market.
On 78%, you reduce of 8%, holy, that's a big change.
Yep.
Of course, it's likewise the other way.
It's likewise, yep. And so that's where a lot of people were really worried about what was gonna happen this year with ag still seeing a 6% increase for the 25 assessment. A lot of people, it basically, it's just bumping to the next level. And then when we have another $5 million worth of new construction value, that helps offset those increases as well. So that's $5 million additional over last year. Or, you know, $15 million worth of new construction. That's value that wasn't here prior. Those are new buildings, those are new sheds, those are, you know, those types of things. So those are things that weren't paying taxes prior. So they help offset some of that increase. And then same thing with the median. They're all seeing increases other than 2026. They're starting to come down a little bit. They started low. We had a few of those auction sales, and you know, they kind of drug the market down. We saw a little bit of an increase there, probably January timeframe, which is not typical. And then now we're starting to see a little bit lower sale prices again. So I'm sure, and that's just because of the ag market right now. Any questions on that? Then the next couple of pages, or the next page here, these are the 2020, the sales listings for the 25 assessments. So these are October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. I believe there's 3 pages of those. And from those, we had 19 sales and they comprised 26 parcels. So this year we also did we did $100 increase on the woods pasture non-crop acreage. And then we did a 6% increase on our tillable land.
Any more signing up for Green Acres?
We have 177 parcels that are part of the Green Acre program.
But not any new ones, right?
Yeah, we've got notes. Yep. So. As Matt and Vicky are out looking at properties, if. It's a designated wetland. Yeah, and we add those like wetland acres back onto the parcel, we'll send out the owner a Green Acres application. Because they if they qualify for it, they're entitled to it.
Yeah.
Considering about 3 or 4 years ago, that's when we kind of made the change. We only had a dozen in the county. So we've brought out Green Acres to a lot of parcels. So. And then the last 3 pages are a listing, or the last 2 pages are the 2026 egg sales that were updated as of last. So those are the numbers that kind of show back to where the egg market is and the average tillable and the median tillable is. And otherwise, countywide, commercial properties also saw about a 6% increase in valuation. Some of the cities, the other changes, Elbow Lake saw an 8% increase. Hoffman saw 2.2%, Herman saw that 38.5%, Norcross and Wendell both saw 11.3%. And then Barrett Offwater saw a 5.8% decrease in value and a 5.5% increase on the lake shore. Or on the lake. New construction for the 25 assessment was definitely up. There were 21 new homes built in Grant County. That doesn't include the ones that were torn down, but that's 21 new houses that were built. And then the egg tier limit has increased from 3.5 million to 3.8 million for the 25 assessment. And that is the information that I have for you guys. If you have other questions or concerns. So the appraisers right now are out viewing properties for their quintiles. So every 5 years, we are required to go out and physically review every parcel. We set up a quartile because it always seems like something comes up. Either we have a wind event and it takes out a whole chunk of properties, we gotta go out and reevaluate them, or. Seems like somebody slips and. Not saying that it happened now, but somebody could slip and fall and break their leg and they're out for a couple of months. It slows down the whole assessment, and usually we use that other year just to kind of catch up. So that's why we use a quartile versus a quintile. The appraisers send out letters before they go out to a jurisdiction. We started that during COVID, and that seems to really help. A lot of people say, yep, we knew you were coming. Like that flyer really makes it a lot easier for our appraisers to go out and view. Then that way they don't get booted off nearly as many parcels. Which still happens. We still get booted.
So when somebody tells them to get off, what's the process then? They just assess it based on.
So if they're already in the middle of it, they're gonna finish what they're doing and they're gonna go back to their vehicle and they'll probably go sit on the road and finish the assessment from there. We did have a situation where they said, you're still welcome, but we just don't want this appraiser on their parcel. So then in that situation, we make notes and the other appraiser is assigned to that. And then before they go out to that property again, they'll call out to the owner and set up a time to view their parcel and then make that work. So, but some of them just don't want to sell. So there's a list of a couple that we don't go to. So we assess those from the road. We have pictometry, and we make the best assumptions that we can.
Do any of them ever call back and complain that the assessment was too high? When they don't let you view it?
Very rarely,
I hope not.
because if they don't allow you to view the property, they cannot appeal to the local board of appeal.
Right,
They can appeal to the county board. But it's up to the county board's discretion of whether they want, the assessor to view it prior to making any adjustment. And then their next option would be tax court.
And that has that.
Yep.
so do we have anything else today? Oh, any more questions, guys? Okay. So I'd like the record to reflect that Doyle, the chairman, wasn't here, Doyle Spears, so that's why I'm the chairman today. And that's the end of the meeting then, and the time is 5:11. Thank you.
Did well, Carl.
Thank you.